Coming this fall from SJS Direct, Easting the Sands of Time. It's action, adventure, and romance in ancient Egypt in this fantasy flashback Easting series adventure. Pre-order Easting the Sands of Time today on Amazon.com. I've wanted to be a part of the comic book industry ever since I was 9 years old. However, after reading about Robbie Rodriguez's recent actions on Twitter, I really don't want to be a part of this industry in the current state that it's in. And the reason why I don't want to be a part of this industry in the current state that it's in is because if Robbie Rodriguez is the standard for professionalism in the current comic book industry, then that standard is not meeting my standard for professionalism. Now, your Robbie Rodriguez decided that because he disagreed with Ethan Van Sciver's political beliefs, that he would send Ethan Van Sciver a picture of his anus. Now, the company he works for, DC Comics, has a policy regarding social media. And your Robbie Rodriguez felt so emboldened that he felt that he did not have to respect the official policy of DC Comics, and he felt that he could go out here and take that picture of his anus and then send this to Ethan Van Sciver and just do this with impunity. And if this is the state that the comic book industry has for professionalism and the standard they have for professionalism, then that industry has no place for me, because an industry where a man can send another man a picture of his anus is an industry where there is no leadership and there is no control over these so-called professionals. Now, I believe Dan Didio and Jim Lee really need to go call up Robbie Rodriguez and hold him accountable for his irresponsible, reckless, and egregious behavior, and make efforts to discipline this individual or terminate this individual, because his behavior was completely out of line for an employee of DC Comics. Now, some will argue that your Robbie Rodriguez was an independent contractor and a freelancer, but as a freelancer myself, I know if I'm working for another company and I'm doing projects for another company, I have to make efforts to represent that company by maintaining an incredibly professional image so that people can have a positive image of the products that are produced by that company, and something that reflects their image in a positive way. So I'm going to try to make sure that my conduct remains professional. When I take a look at Robbie Rodriguez's behavior, it literally is absolutely disgusting. And this is not the kind of behavior you would want to have a professional participating in when they are representing a multi-billion-dollar brand like DC Comics, or a subsidiary like DC Comics, like Vertigo Comics, where Robbie Rodriguez is currently working on the comic book called Goddess Mode. No, a professional would be focused more on trying to make efforts to get readers excited about their new comic book and trying to get people motivated to go out here and buy that comic book, whether it be a paper version or a digital version. But because your Robbie Rodriguez does not appreciate the opportunity given to him by DC Comics, he decides to take this picture of his anus, and he thinks that by doing this, he's going to generate controversy that will get people interested in picking up his Vertigo comic. Well, I'm sorry, you may generate a lot of controversy in YouTube videos and people writing posts on Facebook groups and social media. However, this does not sell comic books to readers. What sells comic books to readers is a quality story and a quality art team working together to create strong visuals that will get readers excited about the product. And I'm not excited about this product after hearing the way Robbie Rodriguez has behaved on social media, because the way he has behaved on social media reflects badly on the entire comic book industry, because oftentimes people have this stereotype about comic book pros being basement dwellers, being weirdos, and participating in extremely deranged and dysfunctional behavior like this. Now, this behavior is so egregious, it even surpasses what I have seen on the black part of YouTube. Now, in the African American part of YouTube, we've had to deal with all sorts of dysfunctional behavior from people who disagree with someone's video, where they will try to go out here and dig up dirt on an individual. They will name call, they will use shaming tactics, and they will harass individuals by going from one social media platform to the next, or if they get blocked on one social media platform, creating a new account to harass someone. But the behavior by Robbie Rodriguez goes even beyond that. This behavior is criminal, because sending someone a picture of an anus, of your own anus, is criminal, because this is harassment, and this is quite disturbing when you think about it. Now, everybody thinks that this Comicsgate controversy, is that people have issues with these people who are currently in comics. But when I take a critical look at the behavior of Robbie Rodriguez, it proves the point of many people like myself who support Comicsgate. Because when you take a look at an individual like this, who sends someone who has a different opinion than him a picture of his anus, all that does is makes the point that the Comicsgate, people who support Comicsgate, have won the argument. And with the picture of Robbie Rodriguez's anus, we have proof that the argument by Comicsgate supporters has been won. Their argument has been proven true, because when an individual participates in an ad hominem attack against a group of people they disagree with, that prove that they cannot reinforce their argument with any sort of solid facts to reinforce their argument, or any sort of points that they can make from facts, using logical points to make their argument be proven. And when I look at Robbie Rodriguez, he has proven that Comicsgate the people who support Comicsgate are right in their position, because here you have someone who is pushing many of the points that many Comicsgate supporters say are the problem. And the problem is, we have these far left extremists working in the comic book industry, and these people do not understand things about crafting a solid story, presenting quality art within the visuals of their comics, or being professional and providing their readers with quality customer service. Because when I look at the way many of these comics pros behave on social media, it's absolutely disgusting. If you got that kind of service from an individual in a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Gap, or any other retail space, that individual would be terminated from their jobs. However, because the comic book industry has no real leadership in the editorial department, many of these individuals can continue to keep their jobs and continue participating in this unprofessional, irresponsible, and egregious behavior without being ever held to any sort of standard of accountability. And this hurts the comic book industry, which has been struggling for over 20 years to try to reclaim its audience. And it's hard to reclaim an audience for an industry when you have so-called professionals who don't understand what the standard of professionalism is. Now, as someone who has been working on the SJS Direct imprint for the last 10 years and has been working on social media towards building my audience for the last 10 years, I know what professionalism is. And I know that when you're on social media, you may run into people who you disagree with. You may run into people who don't like your products. You may run into people who may not even like you. However, you must maintain a professional appearance. You must maintain a professional standard in your conduct, because you're not just representing yourself, you are representing your products, you are representing your company, and you are the face of your product, you are the face of your company, and in your interactions, you have to maintain a professional demeanor, even if people are being hostile to you. Now, I've had people be hostile to me on my YouTube channel, my blogger channel where I had to deal with an online stalker who stalked me for several years, and I had to deal with all sorts of dysfunctional individuals. However, I maintained my professionalism throughout my encounters with these individuals, and I maintained my composure when dealing with them because I understood that there was something more important than my feelings regarding these individuals making these ad hominem attacks. And the things that were more important were the reputation of the SJS Direct imprint, the quality of the products I produced, and the image that I wanted to produce for those products, because as the face of the company, I was representing not only myself, but the SJS Direct imprint, and I wanted people to have a professional image of myself. And because I did that over the last decade, I've managed to start building relationships with many of my readers, and I've always made efforts to try to answer any questions that my readers have, or try to go out here and give them support whenever they need support. Because whenever my readers ask me for things like, what is the reading sequence for John Haynes, or what is the reading sequence for the Isis series or the Spinsterella trilogy, I'll go out of my way to answer those questions either in a video or an email, or I will go out of my way whether I'm on Facebook, because that's just what a publisher does when they care about their products. And when they care about their products and the image of their products, they're going to go out of their way to try to build great relationships between themselves and the customers. And that's something I do every day, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or even on the street, because many people have met me on the street. And I've always maintained professional composure whenever I'm in their presence. And I've always tried to be respectful to people and courteous to people whenever I meet them on the street. And I've met many of my viewers on the street, and I've had good relationships with them, and they've gone out and bought my books because of the great relationship I have with them. And that's one of the things I value very much, are my customers and my relationship with my customers, because that's something that's very important to me. And it really makes me sad that an independent publisher like myself values his customers more than DC Comics, Marvel Comics, and many of these comic book publishers who have far more resources than I have. And in the case of DC and Marvel, you have two companies with billion-dollar companies, and they have people running a company who don't value their customers and don't go out of their way to deal with the unprofessional behavior of people like Robbie Rodriguez. Because if Robbie Rodriguez were to have been working at SJS Direct, I would have terminated Robbie Rodriguez and personally apologized to Ethan Van Sciver myself, because that type of behavior, if it was at SJS Direct, would not reflect the image of SJS Direct, the brand of SJS Direct, and I would go out of my way to let everyone know that this conduct is egregious, and I'm going to hold this individual accountable, because that's what a professional would do. Now, I don't know what Dan Didio and Jim Lee are planning right now to deal with Robbie Rodriguez, but I believe that they need to take some sort of disciplinary action to deal with his behavior, because his conduct was egregious, and it even landed in the realm of violating Warner Brothers corporate policy regarding sexual harassment. So there has to be some sort of disciplinary action taken against this individual due to his unprofessional conduct. So I really believe that Warner Brothers has to do something in this case, because this was just going too far. Many people, they have their issues with Comicsgate, but as a man who supports Comicsgate and understands the First Amendment, I understand where the lines are drawn in the sand. And if you cannot debate an argument based on facts, logic, and reason, and you go out here and make an ad hominem attack or an assault like this picture, it shows that you have no critical thinking skills, no debating skills, and you have proven the point that the other side has made. And what the people of Comicsgate are discussing in their argument is they want to make comics fun and accessible for the next generation of readers. They want to create compelling and entertaining stories featuring these characters, and they want the comic book industry to publish comics that everyone out here can enjoy, that feature action and adventure stories, and stories featuring these characters that stay true to the integrity of the original creator. And they want comics that anyone can read without having to be preached a forced diversity narrative, identity politics, or be told how to feel and think regarding a subject. What they want are comics that are for everyone and comics that are accessible to everyone. But we're not getting that from these comic books produced by people like Robbie Rodriguez. What we're getting are comics that push social justice agendas, identity politics agendas from people who have no real experience in comics, don't understand the craft of comics, and have no love for comics. As someone who has loved comics ever since he was 4 years old, I was absolutely disgusted by reading about Robbie Rodriguez's behavior, watching videos about his behavior, because that's not the comic book industry I grew up with. And if this is the state of the comic book industry, then I want no part of that comic book industry, because the comic book industry I want to be a part of building is a comic book industry where readers can feel comfortable about just picking up any comic and knowing that they can feel safe about sharing that content with their children, comics that are accessible to every new reader out there, comics that feature stories that any new reader can relate to and identify with, and characters readers can relate to and identify with, and a comic book industry where if a comic professional gets an email, a tweet, or a message on Facebook, that comic professional, like myself, will go out of their way to go out here and provide that reader with the best customer service and leave a lasting impression on that customer, that every effort will be made to meet their needs and to give them the best reading experience possible. That's the comic book industry I want to help be a part of, and that's the comic book industry I would like to build. But I don't want to be a part of a comic book industry where we have people participating in perverted behavior like your Robbie Rodriguez, because that's not the comic book industry that I believe anyone would want to be a part of, and it's not one I personally have ever really experienced. In all my over 30 years of being a comic fan and going to comic cons since 1989, I have never heard of a comic pro behaving this way, and to just read about that, it just, again, absolutely disgusts me, because when you have a so-called professional acting like this, it just shows you how the whole situation has fallen completely apart as it relates to many of these leftist comic pros and their disagreement with the people of the so-called Comicsgate. Because if you have an argument, you argue based on facts, and you show how your narrative will sell based on your arguments. However, when you go out here and participate in behavior like this, it shows that the other side is right. And I believe that the other side is right, because if you're producing poor quality comics and you cannot defend them with facts, then it shows that you're not qualified to be in this business, and you deserve to leave this business, because there is no place for this type of person if they're going to call themselves a professional, because there's nothing professional about a man sending another man a picture of his anus. If you want to see some positive and professional work, like on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the Temptation of John Haynes, the John Haynes series, or the Spinsterella trilogy, You may do so by clicking the link to the description box on Amazon.com. There you will find all my books in paperback and ebook format. And if you want to help me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.